Hi, I'm Frank with the CV Mask Project, and this is an instructional video on how to make a mask. Now we have two options available for kits. We have an adult kit and a child size kit. The adult kits are 9 by 6 inch masks, and the kids are 7.5 by 5 inch. In each kit, you'll have elastic and also wire. Other materials needed will be pins, scissors, and a seam ripper. I'm going to assemble an adult face mask. Now, with the adult face mask, I want to put right sides together, and I'm going to pin to help me stabilize. I'm going to start midway through with a 1/4 inch seam. Now before I get to the edge, I'm going to insert my elastic. In between both pieces of fabric at a 45-degree angle, and backstitch. Now I'm going to continue sewing on the 6-inch side, and I have my other piece of elastic that I will attach also at a 45-degree angle, and I'll backstitch also, repeating the same step as I did in this corner. Make sure it's not twisted and it's laid flat. Now I'm going to sew straight stitch all the way on the 9-inch side. I'm going to repeat the same steps on adding the elastic as I did to the 6-inch side. Also at a 45-degree angle. And I'm going to hold it in place, and I'm going to just repeat as I did the other corners. And now I'm back to the 9-inch side which I started. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to go all the way. I'm going to leave about 1.5 inches to a 2-inch gap. That way I can turn it inside out. And now I've sewn in all the elastic on both 4 corners. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add the metal wire for the nose. Now I have two options, and I'm going to show you the first option. First option, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my pins. I'm going to insert the elastic, the wire, until I hit all the way towards the bottom of the 9-inch side. I'm going to try to push it through all the way, and I want to make sure it's pushed up against the seam right about center. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a few pins to make sure it doesn't move, and I'm going to case the wire in. There's one, and it stops about here. Make sure that wire is pushed in all the way. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use I'm going to gauge it with the foot of my machine and just try to slowly feed it through, being very careful because I don't want to break my needle. About right here. Oh. What I can do is I can just first stitch that in, and I can go back and then encase it in. And I'm just going to go back and I'm going to case that in as well. Back stitch. And there you go. I've inserted that wire, and what I'm going to do next, I'm going to flip it inside out. There you go. I flipped it inside out, and I still have the wire here, and you can just feel it. Now this is a second option, which I personally think it's just a little bit easier, and it stabilizes the wire a little bit better in the masks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of gauge to where the center is a little bit. It doesn't have to be exactly, but this seems pretty about right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix my machine to the zigzag setting, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to zigzag the wire right on the seam allowance. And then I also back stitch it. In place. And there you go. The wire is attached to the seam allowance, and what I'll do now is I'll just turn it inside out. So I've turned my mask inside out, and I can feel the wire. It's pretty good up there. I just want to make sure I press it up against the seam. I want to make sure I pull the elastics as far as I can. Now this is a little, the way I think it's easier to add the pleats. What I do is I grab my mask, I fold it in half, at that crease, the half crease, I pin it. I also do to the other end. I pin at the crease. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fold in half again, pin at the crease, and do the same, fold in half, pin at the crease, I'm going to repeat on the other side, fold in half, pin at the crease, and also fold in half, pin at the crease. So now I have 3 pins on each side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my seam ripper. And what I want to do is I want to pleat, make the pleats go down. So using my seam ripper, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just place and I'm going to fold to help create even pleats. And so I just hold it, and I'll remove my pin, and I will pin that pleat right there, and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to fold with the seam ripper. You could adjust it just a little bit to make sure they don't overlap too much, just so it's easier to go through your machine. And I'm going to pin, and I'm going to do the same as well. Make sure the pleat's going down. And I'm going to pin. Make sure it's nice and even. I'm going to repeat the same steps on the other side. Also, making sure that the pleats go down. Pleat goes down. Adjust just a little bit. Pin. Pin the pleat. And there you go. Now the pleats should be pretty even on both sides. If they're not, you can just adjust them a little bit. We want to make sure it's nice and tight, and it looks pretty good right there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just top stitch around twice, and I also make sure I'm going to close up that gap where we turned everything inside out, and I'm going to pin that to make sure I sew that. Now for this I'm going to use just the edge of my foot as a guide. Make sure you back stitch also at each pleat. Now when I get to the 9-inch side that has the wire, I'm going to go very slowly, just making sure I push that wire as far as I can so I don't hit it when top stitching. And then I'll just go around again just to reinforce all those seams. Clip my threads. There it is, my mask. I want to take this time to thank everyone for all your hard work. We've delivered so many gowns to Eisenhower, and we're so grateful for everyone's time and effort to make a difference in our community. Thank you very much from all of us here at CV Mask Project.